What is CMT?
CMT is actually the #1 most frequently inherited peripheral neuropathy in the world. It affects almost as many people as MS does, and unfortunately it's not nearly as well known. Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease is named after three famous physicians, basically Jean-Martin Charcot, Pierre-Marie, and Howard Tooth, who all submitted a paper all at the exact same time in 1886. The father of neurology, Jean-Martin Charcot, had an amazing clinic in Paris, the Salpêtrière Clinic, and basically physicians from all over the world came to study with him. He and his partner, associate Pierre-Marie, submitted a paper on a form of peroneal muscular atrophy back in 1886. And at the same time, this young doctor, just graduating with his thesis, basically submitted a paper on the same thing. And the father of neurology was wrong when he basically felt it was myelopathy. And the young guy from London basically was correct when he described it as a peripheral neuropathy. And so since then it's been called Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. So basically, I can tell you, Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease it's an inherited peripheral neuropathy, large fiber peripheral neuropathy. And it's called a length-dependent neuropathy. The idea is we have peripheral nerves all exit the spinal cord at the anterior horn, and they go down right to the muscle fiber that it's going to innervate. And if you think about you think about a cell being very, very small, but in a 6-foot tall man, that one nerve cell can be 3 feet long. And what happens with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, they've now discovered over 100 different gene mutations that are responsible for what we now know as Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease that affects the neuropathy. All these genes are basically involved with the maintenance or the health, we call it the homeostasis, of the nerve cell itself, whether it's the axon or the myelin around it. It could be a demyelinating process or axonal neuropathy. So basically I like to make a metaphor basically talking about, I compare them to roads around the country. And if you think about Interstate Route 95 going from Bangor, Maine, all the way down to Miami, that's a long road of 1,500 miles long, and yet the road out in front of us right here is just a couple miles long. If you stop doing maintenance on both those roads at the same time, which one's going to have more potholes in it first and fall into disrepair first? Obviously the longer one, 95, would be impassable more quickly than would be the shorter road. And so just like the nerves in our body, the longer nerves get affected first. Based on that, we can basically predict a certain sequence of muscle loss and sensory loss. All the genes that are associated with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease, they're all involved with the maintenance of our nerves, just like the highway department is responsible for the maintenance of the roads. And if all of a sudden we stop doing maintenance on the roads, Route 95 is going to have a lot more potholes in it than this road out in front of our house, and it's going to become untravelable first. And that's typically what happens with Charcot-Marie-Tooth disease. The longest nerves get affected first. The shorter nerves become hardly affected at all most times. And basically, symptoms we can basically predict what kind of symptoms and muscle imbalances you'll have, sensory loss you'll have, based on that length-dependent issue.
So, Ken, what are some common misconceptions that you experience in your line of work?
Well, I think the biggest misconception people have is that basically there's nothing out there that can really make a significant improvement in their life. They're always going to have to hold on to something. Any brace that they get or anything that we can provide is going to make a modest or a subtle improvement. And I think the fact that we can make a wow improvement, that's the biggest thing.
Can you explain the primary symptoms that someone with CMT is facing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, certainly. Happy to. So basically, because it's a link-dependent neuropathy, we can almost predict what's going to happen first. The first thing that's going to happen is we're going to get weakness of our dorsiflexor muscles, and people are going to get a foot slap, and you'll start to hear them coming down the road, right down the corridor, especially in men's dress shoes. Clap, clap, clap. The foot's going to slap, and that's a nuisance that sort of, but doesn't really interfere with your life all that much. But then after that, you can get complete foot drop. As you get more weakness, your ankles become unstable. Now you're getting chronic lateral ankle sprains, and now you're becoming more impaired. Now you're really compensating with your gait. You're having to do a steppage gait pattern, which takes much more energy to walk with. And you're also losing confidence when you walk. You know, you've got to look down at the ground. You're going to guard. You're going to walk. You're not going to have any pelvic motion. It's going to be a very stiff, slow gait pattern where you're looking down at the ground. And that's basically what happens to patients with Charcot-Marie-Tooth.